Hey there, welcome to Midweek Encouragement. I'm Ronald Rice, your host this evening. I'm the senior pastor of the Pentecostals of Salt Lake, 1755 West North Temple in Salt Lake City. Love to have you some Sunday at 11 or Thursday at 7. Good to be with you tonight. Thank you for joining in this time that we have every week for some encouragement, for some enlightenment, for some help, understanding, all the things that I hope that you're receiving from this. I know I'm certainly learning a great deal as I'm preparing and working through all of these things, and I enjoy sharing them. But thank you for coming along and being a part of this. Please make sure you're putting those good positive emojis down there in the bottom, that you're making good comments along the way. The more comments, the merrier. Help yourself. The more comments we get, the better it looks on the algorithms or whatever that Facebook and YouTube uses to get us out there in various people's feeds and locations. So whatever you can do to help is much appreciated. Thank you so much. Always, if you've got questions, contact me. Get a hold of me, email, phone call, text message, somehow. Get with me. Ask. I love questions. I want questions. I'm still a student, learning as much as I know how to research and learn, and I'm always open to learning more truth for sure. Let's continue tonight in our new series called Unclean. And last time we left off talking about we started talking about this whole deal where Jesus and his disciples were castigated by the Pharisees and others for not washing their hands before they eat, and we went into a great detail. Look at that last week. It was a great one. As we ended up, there was an admonition I want to repeat today. There's a tendency, I think, sometimes to get so involved in church work as a parent that it's easy to neglect our children. And my admonition was this: find ways to involve your children with you. We know there's a call of God on your life. That's obvious that needs to be done, but don't forsake the children in the process. Your children need to be involved and mentored by you. So you're called to be a parent as well as whatever God's call on your life is, and your children are also very important to God. So don't abandon one for the other. After this little confrontation with the Pharisees and Jesus and the disciples about the whole washing of hands thing, the Pharisees seem to go away grumbling, complaining, but they're justifying their actions, of course, and their traditions. And after dealing with the Pharisees, Jesus turns to the multitude and he says, "Hey, listen up, everybody. There's nothing that enters a man from the outside which can defile him." Now, this is big stuff here. This is important. And he says it's the things which come out of him. Those are the things that defile a man. That there is nothing, in other words, that you eat that makes you impure. So don't get all hung up on what you eat as if it were the thing, so to speak. Is it good to eat a well-balanced diet? Of course it is. Do I do it? Probably not. That's why I take a lot of other supplements and things. Should you consume large quantities of processed sugar on a regular basis? Probably not. Should you take supplements and find ways to build your immune system? Well, probably so, but we are not the First Church of the multivitamin, okay? That's not who we are. That's not our function as a church body. Furthermore, you are not defiled, or in other words, made unclean by what you eat. It's what comes out of you that can defile you. The tension in these words is in the idea of, well, what happens to the food you eat after your body processes it? That which basically goes into the toilet, right? which is obviously something defiling. But it's also the words coming out of their mouths and our mouths that defile a person. And Jesus concludes this whole dialogue, if you will, by turning all of this into a parable. And it was a strong parable. He said, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." In other words, hear the principles of what I'm saying and do them. Let's keep reading. We're in Mark chapter 7, and I want you to notice here verses 17 to 23. Mark 7, 17 to 23. In your Bible, go ahead and read along with me. When he had entered a house away from the crowd, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. So he said to them, "Are you thus without understanding also? Do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from outside cannot defile him? Because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated, thus purifying all foods." Statement unique to Mark, I believe. And he said, "What comes out of a man, that defiles a man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, theft, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile a man." So Jesus is letting the disciples know a little something that they're going to learn more about a little later. Part of which was that food does not make you a sinner. Now, I'm not talking about gluttony, okay? I'm not talking about that. That's different. But food itself doesn't make you righteous or unrighteous. Brother Heath, you'll be very happy about that. That you can eat food and not be concerned about being made unclean by what you eat. If you are under the law, however, there are certain foods that would defile you. And this is also and I'm reminded of this, a similar experience that Peter had in Acts chapter 10. You know, remember the sheet being let down from heaven containing all manner of animals and the creepy crawly things. And the voice saying, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." And of course Peter says, "Oh no, can't do that. I've never eaten that which is unclean." And the voice responds, "Don't call that which I've made clean common or unclean." The meaning was this, that what God calls clean, don't call unclean. And so Peter, in other words, was still hung up on his tradition and dietary laws. But at that point, and from that point even to this day and onward, we're not under the law. And as we see where this story goes that we're working on, we're going to see that Jesus is actually reaching not only just Israel, but beyond Israel. We're getting ready to see that this is some key points that's happening along the way. The ministry of Jesus, of course, was to Israel. But at the same time, he is casting rays of light outward from Israel. So Mark develops a story that Luke doesn't have. And perhaps that's because Luke uses his sequel. We got the Gospel of Luke and then the Acts of the Apostles, which is the sequel to the book of Luke. And maybe Luke is using his sequel to show us how the Gentiles are ultimately included. But Mark doesn't have a sequel. This is his only shot, if you will. And he's going to let us in on this whole idea now, in this moment, in this story. And Mark's gospel doesn't continue much after the resurrection. So perhaps he's taking this opportunity to let all of those who would read his story understand that the Gentiles are part of this as well. And Matthew Matthew doesn't include that comment about purifying all food either. Mark just seems to be giving us a hint of what's coming in the future from that point in time. Matthew's audience, of course, is decidedly Jewish. That's who he wrote to. That's why you see a lot of Old Testament prophetic utterances quoted throughout Matthew to prove that Jesus was indeed the promised Messiah. Mark's audience reaches beyond the borders of Judaism. It wasn't exclusively to Jews. And so as we're reading in Mark, kind of keep that in mind. Let's keep going. I say let's keep going. I want to re-emphasize verses 20 through 23 for you. What comes out of a man, that defiles a man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. Those are not things you're going to get from food, you understand. All these evil things, it says, come from within and defile a man. So what Jesus is explaining as a parable, in essence, when I say explaining, he is explaining this parable now to the disciples. So it appears that he had deliberately, again, obscured the parable to the multitudes and to others, but now he is explaining things to the disciples. Where on one hand he'd say, it's not what you eat that defiles you, it's what comes out of a man that defiles you. And people could take that any number of ways. But now he's with the disciples, and he's going to give some more detail. What defiles a man, he's saying, is this. What defiles even you and me, what would defile us is morals. Your morals, my morals. It's your attitudes. That which is coming out of you. That is what can make someone unclean, or clean, I suppose. It's the things that come from the heart, the inner man. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Things like evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness, even foolishness. Perhaps sometime we'll have to take time to look into that a little further. Well, but what he's saying is that we have to be right. We have to be holy, not just outwardly, but first be holy in our inner being. This is a challenge that they certainly understood in that day, and is something that we too can understand. So the idea is this: temptation does not destroy anyone. Evil desires do. Now, let's talk about desires. Well, you might say, I had this thought the other day and it was troubling. It came through and I don't know where it came from. And you can really obsess on that kind of stuff. But the thing is, evil thoughts are going to come and go as you allow them to come, allow them to go. You have the opportunity to either dwell on them or push them out and redirect yourself to somewhere else. Evil desires come from those evil thoughts that you decide you want to dwell on and allow them to stay there. Temptation doesn't destroy you. Evil desires will destroy you. The religious leaders that Jesus had talked to, they had all their pots clean, their pans clean, all their cups clean. Everything was just super clean. And their hands were clean. But their hearts were filthy. They were very religious. Understand this. They were very devoted. They knew the Word of God well, but they were rotten on the inside. The outside looked good, but the inside was dead. What comes from the inside can destroy any effect the outside may have. So let me be very clear. You may have every appearance of being a very devout, holy individual, And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's ought to be a natural outward expression. However, if that is your thing, and if you're just all concerned about the outward and inside you're filthy, you're not holy. I'm not even sure you're saved at that point. You've got to deal with what's on the inside. What is on the inside is what matters. Proverbs has a neat thing. Proverbs 11:22, like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman without discretion. Beauty is one thing, but what's on the inside is what's important. You're never going to wash your hands enough to remove the evil spirit that's on the inside. There are not enough showers in the world to remove that kind of a spirit on the inside. There has to be a change on the inside. That's what is highly important. If you don't deal with the inside first, everything else is nothing more than conformity. Let that sink for a minute. We don't want to be just conforming to the environment that we're in, because that'll carry over into all kinds of craziness. We have to make sure the inside's clean. And out of the abundance of what's on the inside is what's going to come out of your mouth. If you can get the inside right, get your motives right, remove every evil desire, focus your thoughts in the right direction, take those thoughts captive unto Christ, as the New Testament tells us, then you're on the right track. If however you just want to fit in with how you look in a certain environment, well, that's not going to get you where you want to go. We better move on, or I'll get into some trouble probably here if I keep going. Let's keep going in Mark chapter 7, verses 24 through 30, because it gets interesting here. Go ahead and read with me. From there he arose and went to the region of Tyre and Sidon, and he entered a house and wanted no one to know it, but he could not be hidden. For a woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him, and she came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by birth, and she kept asking him to cast the demon out of her daughter. But Jesus said to her, "Let the children be filled first, for it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs." And she answered and said to him, "Yes, Lord, yet even the little dogs under the table eat from the children's crumbs." And then he said to her, "For this saying, go your way. The demon has gone out of your daughter." And when she had come to her house, she found the demon gone out and her daughter lying on the bed. Now, these stories all tie together. This is not just a random account that Mark is doing here. Everything's connected. Tyre and Sidon were not Jewish regions. The regions of Tyre and Sidon might, if you know some of your Old Testament history, that region might bring to mind a very lovely and gracious woman from the Old Testament. Her name was Jezebel. That was where Jezebel came from. She was not Jewish. She was, in essence, pagan, and married or perhaps the king of Israel, Ahab, married her, I should say. So you got Tyre. Even before that, under Hiram, if you'll remember, Tyre was the primary source of materials and skilled labor that was used to build King David's palace. That's what was used to build Solomon's temple and Solomon's palace as well. Just for historical context. Now, why did Jesus head to that region? Well, he's going there because he's tired. He's trying to get a break. He needs a rest. He's been giving and giving and giving, and the humanity was tired, worn out. He wanted to get out of town. And he didn't want anybody to know where he was going, and he didn't know anybody, and he didn't want anybody to know when he got there that he was there. But the scripture says he could not be hidden. So Jesus tries to get away from everything, and he couldn't do it even there. So sure enough, somebody hears that Jesus is there and told somebody who told somebody. And now, please remember, Jesus is trying to get away. He's not home. This is not his home. He's trying to be on a little vacation. His time is limited. He knows that, but he's got to recuperate and rest if he's going to be effective physically, humanly. So he did not go into that region to minister to those on the outside of Israel anyway. That was not his purpose in ministering at that time. And here he's in this land, and people, the buzz starts. People start talking, and then here comes this woman whose daughter has an unclean spirit. The woman finds Jesus. She fell at his feet. So that's the context here of what is about to happen. And keep in mind, Jesus is not here to find disciples. He's not here to do anything. He is here to do nothing, to rest, to recuperate. He's just trying to get away. So the woman that comes to him is described as Greek, a Syro-Phoenician by birth. What a great explanation. So just to cut it short, this is a Gentile woman. She is certainly not Jewish. She shows up. She falls at the feet of Jesus, and she is continually asking Jesus to cast the demons out of her daughter. But Jesus isn't there to do anything. He just wants to rest. But she's persisting. She keeps asking over and over and over. And finally, Jesus responds to her. And he says, let the children be filled first. It's not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. Now, I know I have done the same, but many have gone to great lengths to try to explain this interaction. And the fact that he uses the term little dogs or dogs. This term, we want to say that this term wasn't an insult, that little dogs means this. Maybe it was just a common term at the time, or maybe we stretch it really far. Well, she was acting like a little puppy, just wanting some attention and needing some help from God. Well, let's look at it. Let's look at it. So Jesus is really saying that it makes no sense for the bread of the children, now children meaning Israel, and bread is essentially that which is good, satisfying, and it doesn't make any sense to give that to the dogs. Now, first century, let's make sure we're staying here. First century mentality, Middle Eastern area. Dogs in that day received only scraps. They only got leftover stuff that was no longer worth eating or for human consumption. And bear in mind also that in those days and in that place, dogs weren't pets like we may think of dogs. So my dear sweet wife, you understand what I'm saying here, right? I'm not against pets and dogs as pets, just not in our house. dogs are cute and furry and people pet them and love them and they have them, but because of, I'm going to try to be delicate, because of the mannerisms of dogs in general, first century Jews considered dogs to be very unclean. And when Jesus mentioned dogs, he's not referring to cuddly creatures we like to have in our home. He's talking about these animals that often ran wild and were kind of like buzzards. They would come and eat whatever rotten, useless leftovers, garbage, whatever stuff that nobody else would want. They would come and scarf up. I guess it's possible that there were some higher up rich Romans who may have had some pet dogs. Pet dogs in that time was not uncommon throughout the world. Maybe even some Jews that associated with Romans may have had dogs. I don't know. But to be clear, what Jesus is saying to this woman is that this woman is nothing better than second best, and perhaps even entirely unqualified to receive anything from him. That's his message to her. And the latter of those two is most likely, considering the language employed. He's telling her, you're not qualified to receive what I'm giving. In any case, Jesus, that's not a very nice thing to say. How could you? But remember, Jesus had a mission. And considering the language employed here, it's very likely that Jesus is not doing anything more than pushing this woman for a response. She's constantly, repeatedly asking him to do this for her daughter, and now he's finally pushing back and seeing just what she's made of. Do you really want this? Are you really, you really can't say something like this to someone without them pushing back in some way. There's going to be, a couple of different, at least, options of pushback. And the question is how is she going to push back? What is her response? Is she a whiner, or is there more? And what about the bread? What is this bread to which Jesus is referring? Well, the bread he's talking about is the miracle. It's the healing. It's the deliverance that this woman is asking for. So that is something for the children of God. And notice that it's not dessert or a side dish of some sort, because bread in that day was a staple that would be provided to every child. That would be the foundational thing. And that's what miracles are for the children of God. Miracles are not the extra or the additional sweetness we may desire and want, the cherry on top, if you will. Miracles are the mainstay and essential for the children of God. I'm going to have to stop there. I have run out of time once again. Next time we're going to get into just how this woman responded to such an audacious statement by Jesus. And we'll see how all of this works out. You can read about it there in Mark 7. Thank you for joining in tonight and being a part of this weekly time that we have together. It really is a joy to be able to spend time with you. I love your comments and your emojis and your interactions. And thank you for doing all of those things. Please make sure you're sharing this video. You're starting a watch party, whatever platform you happen to be on, and do this in a way that's positive and encouraging. We want others to join in on this journey with us. There's no strings attached. Just come on this journey with us. And until next week, when we join once again for Midweek Encouragement, 7:30 Wednesday evening, please make sure you love God first and foremost. Love your neighbor as yourself. fast, pray, give generously. Now you go and make a disciple.